Hey, welcome back to the Stash. Gotham City is a place built on contradictions. It's a city of endless shadows, but somehow hope always finds a way to break through. Batman, the Dark Knight himself, is the perfect embodiment of that duality. A man haunted by tragedy yet driven by an unwavering sense of justice. But lately, it feels like the stories being told in Gotham don't quite live up to the legacy of its greatest hero. It feels more like they wear the cowl, but lack the soul. They strike the pose, but miss the point. That was my disappointment as I wrestled with my last video, in that I took a deep look at Tom Taylor's Detective Comics debut, and while I stand by my critiques, I'll admit I might have been a little too harsh, because this next chapter, it surprised me. It made me pause, rethink, and even, dare I say, feel something? That's not to say it's perfect, it's far from it, but for the first time in a while, I caught a glimpse of what Detective Comics could be if it embraced the complexity, the nuance, and yes, even the imperfections of its hero. But before we dive in, I just want to take a quick moment to say that your support here at The Stash truly does mean the world to me. If you're a fan of Batman, comics, or just love passionate takes on the stories we care about, consider sticking around and hitting that subscribe button. We are trying to reach 6,000 subscribers, and every bit of support helps keep this channel going and growing. With that said, let's jump into Detective Comics issue 1091, a comic that might not redeem everything, but at least gives us a reason to hope. Our story begins in a freakish dream world with the Joker strangling Bruce, when suddenly Robin appears, but this isn't a Robin we've seen before. It's Sam from last issue, the boy Bruce blames himself for dying. In an effort to save Batman, Sam shoots the Joker, killing him from point blank range. In an eerie repeat of what happened in real life, Bruce backhands Sam, exclaiming that they never kill. Dream Bruce immediately apologizes after he realizes what he's just done to his ward, with Sam asking the one of many questions that's been haunting Bruce's mind. He then wakes up, coldly staring into the ceiling. He can't let go the 9 murdered youths. He has to do something to stop it from continuing. Batman heads to the morgue where him and Harvey Bullock inspect Sam's corpse. Throughout it all, Bruce still can't let it go. He hit him. If he hadn't, if he had remained calm, then maybe Sam would have still been alive today. Bullock tries to reassure Batman that he did nothing wrong, but I don't think much of that gets through to him. Oracle then warns him that one of the kids they've been monitoring has just been snatched off the street, a boy named Kai Edwards, only 16 years old. Robin is already en route, and so Batman wastes no time and makes his way to the chase. Once there, Bruce forces the truck doors wide open and the dynamic duo leap into the crowd of goons. During the fight though, Batman's conscious about his current state, especially with the potential aging cure just a call away. The fight rages on. Robin makes it look effortless, while Bruce is a little bit more slower. A thug manages to whack his knee with a crowbar, but with one cold stare, the man regrets all his life choices. Batman moves onto one of the last conscious guards and tells him to talk. He explains that Kai took some money from their boss, hence why this entire kidnapping took place. Batman knows who they work for, and so, wasting no time, he grabs Kai and the three head to the Batmobile, with Bruce's knee proving to be a problem. Later that day, the world's finest share a conversation. Superman tells Batman that he's done an MCL injury, and shows his genuine concern, insisting Bruce to not ignore the pain like he always does. Clark then goes to sit next to him and asks what the real reason is. Why did Bruce truly want to meet up? Batman goes over all that's happened recently, mostly the new medical breakthrough that slows aging down. He doesn't know if it'll be right to take it for 2 main reasons. 1, if it's not available to others, and 2, he doesn't want to watch the people he loves fade away. Superman gives him much needed perspective, and the world's finest share a heart-touching moment, with Clark telling Bruce if humanity is on the cusp of a great leap forward, he'd prefer Bruce to be a part of it, and he knows that the world is safer the longer Batman is here to protect it. Bruce shares his final concern, asking how can Superman support this if he'll be the only one to benefit from it. Clark, as hopeful as ever, says to Batman it's because he knows he won't be the only one to. If it works, if it truly helps lives, Superman knows that Batman will find a way to share it with the world. And so after that conversation with Clark, Bruce makes his way to do it. He's finally made up his mind. After a few health tests that all go well, it's time. He's given the instructions and tablets for the procedure, and without further ado, Scarlet injects Batman with the serum. Later in the early morning, Damian wakes up his father. Bruce has been out cold for 11 hours straight since the procedure, but so far, the signs are looking positive. His knee is all healed up, like Scarlet said it would. Damian then informs Bruce that he's received the money Kai stole, as well as the hotel he put him in for safety. Batman plans to meet the Penguin, the man who the kid stole from, but before he leaves, he asks Damian to take a sample of his blood. He soon arrives at the Iceberg Lounge and makes light work of all the goons working for Cobblepot, no doubt thanks to the serum improving his body. He meets with the Penguin and tells him he'll only give the money back if he can prove it was obtained legally in the first place, which just results in Cobblepot forgetting about the cash. But he still has a bone to pick with the kid. Batman warns him to leave him be. Oswald exclaims that he took from him. Batman simply replies with, "And now I have what he took." And so our story ends at the Three Seasons Hotel, where Kai hears a knock on the balcony door. He slowly opens it, wondering if it's Batman or Robin, but what fate has in store for him tonight is the very opposite. This issue was better. That alone feels like a weird thing to celebrate, doesn't it? Detective Comics is supposed to be the flagship title for one of the most iconic characters in fiction, and yet here I am, relieved that an issue was merely good. After that clunky missteps of Tom Taylor's debut, I went into issue 1091 expecting more of the same, a story struggling to balance big ideas with meaningful execution. Instead, I got a glimpse of what this arc could be if it stopped trying so hard to be profound and simply let the characters speak for themselves. Granted, there were still moments where I felt like it failed to do so, but majority of this issue was a massive step up. Let's talk about Bruce Wayne. One of my biggest gripes with the last issue was how heavy-handed it was in portraying his age. Barbara basically just called him old. It wasn't just blunt, it was lazy. But here, Taylor takes a different approach. We see Bruce's age not through dialogue, but in his actions, his hesitations, and in the weight he carries in every panel. There's something quietly sad about watching a man who has always been larger than life, who's always been Batman, begin to feel his limits. It's subtle, it's effective, and finally in this arc, Bruce feels human. Now, the youth serum continues to be a central thread of this story, and while I appreciate the attempt to dive into the ethics of it, I can't help but feel like it's still missing the mark. Scarlet having the idea of giving billionaires a second chance at life that could maybe result in them suddenly starting to care about the planet feels so naive that I almost wonder if it's supposed to be. Maybe it's Taylor making a point about how he personally views the elite to be detached, but if that's the case, it's not coming through in the right way at all. Instead, we're left with speeches that feel clunky and artificial, like talking points ripped from a think piece rather than words coming from real people. That said, this issue does explore some interesting questions about morality and second chances. I felt like it expanded on those themes way better than the last release too. I've slowly come around to the questions such as who deserves to live longer, who gets to decide being in this story, as at first it felt a little too repetitive for me, but I do think the new angle of having Bruce actually take the procedure helps make it stand out a lot, and while the execution isn't perfect, it's at least somewhat compelling. The real highlight of this issue though for me is the character interactions. Bruce's conversation with Bullock at the beginning sets the tone beautifully. Bullock insists he did nothing wrong, but Bruce believes he knows better. It's a subtle moment that speaks volumes about who Batman is and what he stands for. And then there's the conversation he has with Clark. It was probably my favorite scene in the whole book. I loved Superman's line, "Alfred isn't here to remind you, so I'll say it for him, Bruce. Ignoring pain doesn't make you stronger." It just feels like such a Clark thing to say to Bruce. I also love how Superman explains to him how much he means to Gotham and the people of the city. Bruce may not feel like he deserves to take the youth treatment, but Superman and we as readers know that Batman has been through hell and back, enough to make any normal person quit. That's what makes Bruce's eventual decision to take the serum so interesting. He doesn't do it out of vanity or fear. He does it because he knows Gotham still needs him, even if he doesn't feel like he's enough all the time. For a character defined by his resilience, this moment of vulnerability and genuine soul-searching feels earned. It's a rare instance where the emotional payoff of the story actually works, and I found myself genuinely excited to see where it leads. But even with these bright spots, I can't fully shake my skepticism. The retcon to Bruce's origin continues to cast a shadow over this entire arc for me. The senseless tragedy of the Wayne's death is central to Batman's story. It's what makes him who he is. Turning it into some elaborate revenge plot feels like a cheap twist, and a way just to inject drama when none was needed. The only angle I do feel genuinely interested in for the change would be the theme of how some of you guys in the previous video saw it, the no good deed goes unpunished way of it. If the book goes with that theme for the retcon, I could see myself getting behind it, especially because you can maintain the two beacons of hope being gunned down by the corruption in the cesspool of the city that they so desperately tried to heal, while having a no good deed goes unpunished added depth to it as well. But if Tom Taylor opts for a more basic revenge story, then it's going to remain a very sore spot for me. The art, on the other hand, is flawless. Now, I hope I pronounced your name right. Mikhail Janine once again proves why he's one of the best in the business today. Each turn of the page had this sense of excitement to it because of the way he brings these characters to life. It's otherworldly. Every panel feels alive. Every expression is brimming with emotion. The visual storytelling elevates even the weaker moments of the script, and it's a big part of why this issue works as well as it did for me. But at the end of the day, where does that leave us? Detective Comics issue 1091 is a huge improvement over the last issue, but it's still not without its flaws. The dialogue can be heavy-handed, the themes occasionally feel overplayed, and the shadow of that retcon still looms large for me. But finally, at the very least, I'm cautiously optimistic. This isn't a perfect comic by any means, but it's a step in the right direction. This issue doesn't feel like a comic pretending to be important like how I found the previous release to be. Instead, it feels like a story trying to earn its place, and that's all I want from Detective Comics. Just give me a reason to believe again. Because Batman deserves better, and so do we.